Hi, welcome to AutoCAD 101. This is assignment 3. Rather than sit through the startup, I actually have AutoCAD started already, so let's maximize it up. Bing. For this assignment, we're going to open assignment 2, and we're going to, because we want this title block, and we're going to save it as assignment 3. You probably won't have one to click on, but I have one. What we're going to draw today looks like that, but we'll override what I've got. And let's start by erasing all of this stuff. Erase is the command, E is the command alias, the shortcut. E, if you remember, there was crossing windows, and selection windows. Selection windows only take the stuff inside. So I could use a selection window like so, and see how it won't take the title block because we did that as a rectangle. That rectangle is not fully inside. Most people would probably just grab it like this and hit enter. Another thing you can do, if you highlight this stuff without a command, your keyboard's delete key will work. So you can do that as well. Sometimes that's a fast way to do it. The next thing we're going to do is come down here and we're going to edit the drawing title. There are a number of DD edit is a command to actually do the editing, but if you just double click on it like we did last time, you can come in here and start editing immediately. Oops. Capitals. Assignment 3. Do the same thing for drawn by and put your initials. Checked by, leave blank. Put today's date. And if you have a class number where you happen to do this, go ahead and put your class number. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to put a big 3/8 of an inch 3 here. So we start our text command, text, pick point. You're going to find that point doesn't really matter, but we'll talk about it in a second. So pick point. It asks us how high, so we put 3/8. The angle of the text that we want to be 0, and then we put a big 3. And you'll notice it's not really quite where we want it, because when we insert the point of the text, that insertion point is actually somewhere down here and not up there. So let's move it. We'll just pick some tricks about moving. Remember, move and copy asks for base points. Be a little careful about this, because what you're doing, you want to pick a point that's not going to jump to a snap. So that's the trick with these. So sometimes you want to pick a point out in the la-la land, even though you're moving the object here. What you do is you go move, you'll pick a point way out someplace and then adjust it. Once you have that, go back and hit save. Alternatively, you notice it's QSave. Alternatively, you could just type QS and enter, and now save it as well. If you hear a funny noise in the background, this is why I've been putting off doing these. We have a solenoid that controls one of the diffusers in the air conditioning vents, and it's going bad, and it keeps making a sound that sounds like tape from a big tape dispenser being pulled off. So sorry if that's in the background. I'm hoping that the mic's not picking that up. Once we're ready to this point, we're ready to draw some objects. I've got handouts for this. Let me pull one up. I sent them over to people at Northside. I'll also try to attach it to the YouTube. And that's this, the first page is what we just did. But we're going to draw a stud and some other objects today, and we'll end up with a drawing that looks like this. So we have a section through a wood stud, a steel angle, a wide flange beam, and the top of 2 hex bolts. But let's go up to the stud. One thing about wood studs is, even though this is called a 2x4, it isn't 2 inches by 4 inches. This is cut out of the tree at roughly 2 inches by 4 inches. It's then allowed to dry to uniform moisture content, and they run it back through a planer to surface all 4 sides down to a uniform 1.5 by 3.5 inches. Since all parts in the tree don't lose water at the same amount, some shrink a lot, some don't shrink much at all. This guarantees that all the studs are the same size. You'll notice the 2x4 is written with the inch marks. This is what's called a nominal dimension. But we're going to draw a rectangle starting at 1 3/4 or 1.75, either way. So let's make it where we can see this at the same time we're drawing with our AutoCAD. This is one of the reasons why it's kind of helpful to have multiple screens if you're working on AutoCAD. Let's zoom in a little bit. So we start our rectangle command, which is rectang. Our EC is a shortcut. Our first point is 1 comma 1 3/4. So 1 comma 1.75, or if you want to do the 3/4, you can. It'll take both. From that point, we're going to go over 1.5 inches sideways and 3.5 inches up. First number is always the sideways dimension, so 1.5 comma 3.5. And there's our rectangle. These diagonal lines indicate that it's a stud and it's continuous. If you only saw a single line, it means it's just blocking, so it's just like a little piece of wood periodically. So to do those, we'll just go line, make sure your object snaps are on using the F3 button, pick an endpoint, enter to start out the line command again, pick your 2 points, and then enter to tell it you're done. Congratulations, you got the 2x4 drawn. The next thing we're going to draw is a steel angle shape. Steel angles are always described as the length of one leg, the length of the other leg, and then the thickness. In this case, it's a 3x3 by 3/8 steel angle. We want this corner to start at 2.7. Don't worry about these radiuses for now. We'll get that in a moment. So we're going to start the line command, line 2.7. If your ortho's on, that's the F8 button, turn your ortho on where you can only draw up and down and sideways and tell it 3. Now at this point, we have a couple options. We could just go 3/8, go back. Oh, I got to do the math now. Okay, so 2-5/8, 2-5/8, and then either snap to the endpoint, or since this has all been one line command, we could hit C for close. Another way of doing that with the command we learned last time was offset. If we just drew these 2 lines, we could go offset. And for our offset distance, we could hit 3/8 of an inch, pick these 2 objects, and we're good. Now one thing you notice, we have with that little box we pick with is called a pick box. If you're having trouble that it's too teeny, type pick box and make the value like 8 or something, and then you get a bigger pick box. The only thing we have to do now is create some little ends, so we use our line command. And then it's going, Mr. Lane, this is all messed up here. Doesn't look like you're drawing. That's okay. We're going to fix that in a minute. We're going to use a command that creates these radiuses for us called fillet. It's not fillet. That's just because you're hungry. A fillet is actually what's called, it's a welding term, and a fillet weld is a little radius weld. So we'll start fillet. The radius is 0 for the default, and we'll talk about why that's really useful here. I leave my fillet radius to 0 all the time because when we're drawing, a lot of times we'll offset stuff like this, and if we click here and here, instead of creating a radius, it just joins our 2 lines. That is a really powerful tool in AutoCAD, especially for architectural work, so something to be remembered. But let's start fillet again, and let's set our radius, so R, for 1/4 inch, sorry. 3/8 steel, but we want a 1/4 inch radius. And now if we pick those 2 points, you'll notice it gives us our little curve. We can do the same thing down here. Click, click, again, click, click. So that's how we get that. To fill this with a hatch pattern, because if you notice when we scroll down to the final drawing, we want to have this hatch pattern in here. And we say we want that hatch pattern to be the steel pattern, and we're going to set the scale to 4. So hatch, could also pick the hatch thing. Click inside. The pattern is steel. We may have to expand this out a little bit if we use this layout. Oh, it's not going to let me do it now. Well, let's set the 4 for the scale. And we got to get to the pattern. There we go. So click on that, and now we can scroll down to find steel. You probably won't have to make it do this because I've got the screen so small, it's not letting us preview these. And once you get it the way you want it, you hit enter. We'll talk later about putting these on different layers. Normally we draw outlines in a big bold line called profile lines, and hatch is usually a very fine line. But we'll talk about that more later. Go ahead and hit save. I think I might be having trouble with some of the audio on bigger files, so I'm going to stop here and we'll pick this up in a second video.